Hello, fifth grade rebels. We ended last week's lesson with talking about Fort Sumter and the first attack with the Confederate states that is separated off from the Union. Remember, the Union is going to be the North, and the Confederate or Confederacy is going to be the South. Okay, so don't forget that. Confederate is in the southern states, and the Union is the North. And they considered the Union what they wanted to be the United States of America. So at this point, Fort Sumter has just been attacked. Remember, President Lincoln is in charge. And with him becoming president, the South feared he would abolish slavery, destroying their entire way of life and their economy. And so they're ready now to separate. It's going to be almost a repeat of the Revolutionary War, because you see how we wanted to, the new colonists in America wanted to separate from Britain, and now the South wants to separate from the new United States from the North. So at this point, we had 11 Confederate states, and we had 23 Union states. So in the North, there's 23 states involved, and in the South, there's 11 states involved right now. So the Southern states, or the Confederacy, has started forming a new government. They've separated from the North, and they are fighting to preserve their entire way of life. So they feel like they have more to fight for. They have more rural way of life. And so they think that that country boy way of life, that hard-working lifestyle, is going to equal better soldiers that are more prepared to fight. There's a lot more hunting in the South, and so they feel like they are more skilled with weapons. And a lot of the great military leaders that we had from the past wars came out of the South. So there's a good history of military leaders. In the South, after the Civil War ended, they spent about $1 billion on the war. They didn't have a whole lot of money to spare. And in the North, they were trying to preserve the Union. So it wasn't just necessarily fighting to abolish slavery, but they were fighting to keep everyone together in a unified United States. 90% of the U.S. weapons were made and produced in the North. So they have more weapons, far more weapons than in the South. And of course, if they just want to cut off that trade down to the South, then they can. They have far more advanced transportation, because most of the railroads and the canals are in the North. And then so their economy is much higher because of their industrialized economy. So they make way more money than the South. And by the end of the war, they had spent $2.6 billion. So the North outnumbered them. They had more supplies than them, and they had more money than them. So the North is in the favor to win right now. Plus, the president is supporting the North. So the North's plan for the war that's about to take place after this attack on Fort Sumter. President Lincoln goes to General Winfield Scott for military help. He had been a good general during the Mexican War that had been fought. And so Lincoln went to him, and Scott developed a plan. It's a pretty clever plan. So he develops this plan, and it's nicknamed the Anaconda Plan. So I drew a snake up there so you can help remember that. But there's 3 parts to this military attack. And then if these 3 parts are executed, it should totally defeat the South. So the Anaconda Plan. First part is an Atlantic and Gulf Coast blockade. Now, a blockade is where you move in and you basically what Britain tried to do to the colonists, where you move in and shut down all importing and exporting of goods. And so they were going to cut off the Atlantic routes and the Gulf Coast routes so that the South would lose all their cotton sales over to Britain. So then their economy would shut down, and they would have a low supply of money and couldn't get supplies in or out. 1 week after the attack on Fort Sumter, President Lincoln ordered for this blockade to go ahead and start as soon as this became part of the plan. So It was a pretty immediate response to the attack on Fort Sumter. Part 2 would be to capture the Mississippi River Territory. So that would cut the Confederate states in half, sectioning them off so they could be defeated in smaller portions. And then part 3 of the Anaconda Plan is finally they were going to attack from both the east and the west. And if they could attack from both sides, they have a blockade around the bottom. They've split it up the middle with the Mississippi River. Then they're going to do like a squeeze method of attack. And that's where the nickname Anaconda Plan came into play. So the South will have nowhere to go. The South's plan for the military is a little bit more, not as aggressive. So the South really doesn't think that the North really wants to go to war. They think that eventually they'll get tired and just stop. So the South's plan is to defend their territory until the North is just going to get tired and give up. They also think they're going to fight more brutally and with more passion because they have a lot more to lose. And then they, for some reason, because of their past trade with Britain, the South thinks that Britain will be an ally for them during this war. And so because Britain won't want to lose them as a source of trade, mainly for cotton. But what the South didn't realize was Britain didn't need cotton from the South anymore in America because they were already starting to depend on India and Egypt for their cotton needs. And so they really had already started gaining a surplus of cotton. So they really didn't need the South like the South thought Britain needed them. You'll see later in the war, but Britain lets the South use some of their shipyards to build ships, but that's about all they do. So they don't really count as much of an ally. So some of the early battles, we're going to talk about a few of them, but not many. We'll talk about a few more next week. But the Confederacy actually gained a little bit of confidence early on in this war. So Lincoln attacks Richmond, Virginia, and we're in 1861. And that is where the Confederacy in the South had set up to be their capital. So Lincoln attacks Richmond, Virginia, and this becomes known as the Battle of Bull Run. So at the Battle of Bull Run, not far from Richmond, Virginia, troops from the North, troops from the South met close to a nearby stream, and the Union is winning up until the point where a famous general for the Confederates, Thomas Jackson, his nickname is Stonewall Jackson, he told the Confederate troops to hold, stay in place, do not retreat, hold your ground, protect this territory. And so he was said to have held the Confederates in place like a wall, and which is why he gets the nickname of Stonewall Jackson. And he is an incredible general during this war who really helps the Confederates. At the end of this battle at Bull Run, you have 3,000 Union casualties. Casualties, again, means deaths, injuries, people missing, or captured soldiers. So 3,000 Union versus 2,000 Confederates. Now, already the Union Army is far larger than the Confederates, but the Confederates were given this victory. Then in 1862, we have the Battle of Antietam. At this point, at the start of this battle, just so you can kind of see, look at the numbers here. The Union starts off this battle total. The Union has 87,000 soldiers, and the Confederates only have 38,000. So you can see the numbers are not even comparable. But the start of this battle, it happened in Maryland. And by the end of it, we have 12,000 Union casualties, 10,000 Confederate casualties. But even if you do the math there, and you take away 12,000 from 87,000 and 10,000 from 38,000, you can see that the Union are still going to highly outnumber them. So the reason this is considered a Union victory is because although there were more Union casualties, the strategy here to gain this land was actually won by the Union because they still had far more outnumbered. So it's called a strategic win. a strategic victory. So the Battle of Antietam, one of the things that resulted after the Union win this battle is that Britain refused to aid the South any further. So I guess they didn't let them use their shipyards anymore. So they just pulled completely away from this war at that point. Now, Robert E. Lee, he is a Confederate general, and I'm going to attach a little bonus reading bio about him. And he's a pretty cool guy to read about, but he actually was asked by Lincoln to be a leader in the Union Army, but he declined, and he didn't want any part of this war because he wanted all the states to remain unified and together, and he didn't want to go to war against each other. But then when he found out that pretty much there was no denying that this war was going to happen, he turned to protecting his home state of Virginia. So he said he couldn't stand to see fighting against his own home state, his home people, his family and friends that he grew up with. So he was wanting to protect Virginia. Well, Virginia at that point when he made those decisions was not part of either side yet. And so they hadn't seceded yet to join the Confederacy. But when it did, Robert E. Lee said, I have to fight for my home state. So he actually did not like slavery. He was against it, but yet was the main Confederate general leading the Confederate troops, just mainly to protect the South and its way of life and its land. He didn't want to see its land being destroyed and the people he loved and the places he loved. Now, lastly, we learned a lot about the Revolutionary War, and it's crazy to me to think that the Revolutionary War went on for so long and it involved so many different allied countries, yet this Civil War, which was just between Americans, ends up having far more casualties than the Revolutionary War ever did. And one of the reasons, one of the reasons for that is because of this new technology. Because obviously we're advancing, we're further along in the years. And so the Civil War takes place from 1861 to 1865. Well, this war is extremely bloody and deadly, and again, has more casualties than all the countries that were involved in the Revolutionary War, which is just crazy because we were at war with ourselves. But because of this new technology, deaths and injuries were at an all-time high for this time period. So they had more accurate weapons. They had rifles. They could shoot a lot farther and more accurately. Both sides used hand grenades. It was an early version of hand grenades. Ironclads were amazing. These are ships, but they're not made of wood. They're covered in iron as their outer layer on the outside of the wood. So if two ironclads were at war with each other, it could be hours and hours and hours and both not even be hardly even injured or, damaged by cannonballs because it would just bounce right off of them. So these ironclads, if one side had it and one side did not, that ironclad was definitely going to win if it was a war on the water, a battle on the water. And then the South was the first to use submarines because remember the North had done the blockade down in the Gulf Coast and near the Atlantic. And so the South developed submarines so they could escape under the blockade without the North noticing. And then later, of course, the North is going to copy this and start to have some of their own submarines. Railroads during this time, in the Revolutionary War, we talked about how transportation could take so long because it was mostly by foot. Remember, we talked about them having to pull cannons across snow and ice. Well, now they have railroads. So railroads gave them transportation of troops and transportation of supplies. So it was a lot quicker. Well, the railroads were mostly up north because of the industrialized living. And so the North had much easier transportation of supplies and troops than the South did. So this is a pretty short little intro to the Civil War, and then we're going to get more into it next week. But for your assignment this week, I'm going to give you a couple options. So down here in green, this part down here at the bottom, okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 options, okay? Battle of Bull Run, Battle of Antietam, Robert E. Lee, Thomas Stonewall Jackson, railroads during the Civil War, ironclads, and Confederate submarines. So those are your 7 options. Okay, what I want for you to do is you can do one of 2 things, or you can do both if you want. I want you to research further about any of these topics. Just pick one. And if you are artistic and want to do some kind of painting or drawing, like let's say you choose the submarine, and you want to do a drawing of a submarine, a Confederate Day submarine, and you want to label it or make any kind of little info captions around it or something like that. Or if you just want to do a painting of a submarine back from the 1800s, anything like that. If you want to do an art picture, labeled diagram, anything like that. I don't want it like traced. I want you to actually do it if that's something you're good at. And you can do that as your assignment for any of these. Or you can do a just informational slideshow like you've done in the past with like Google Slides or PowerPoint or something like that. Google Slides is probably the easiest for you guys on any of these topics. Just choose one, and you can do like an artistic informational drawing for us, or you can do an actual research little slideshow for us. And again, I'm not going to tell you how many slides. Just insert some images. You can insert a video clip if you want. You can insert captions and information, facts about it. But just tell me more about these topics here, because there's so much that we're leaving out in these little short lessons. So research some of these, and then your assignment is to either do it in an art form or in a slideshow form. Okay. And I will talk to you guys next week. Also, tomorrow morning is the teacher parade caravan where we're going to ride through. So I hope to see some of you guys tomorrow morning. So take a break from your studies. Go outside and wave at us as we drive through, because we were missing seeing you guys. All right. Bye.